All right, let's dive in. Chris, it's good to see you. I know you and I connected a while back just based on kind of
Yep.
I think a mutual affinity for sales. Having been in sales or sales-like roles for a long time, I think that's where we kind of hit it off, and we've talked a few times and talked about doing this. And looking forward to this conversation and learning from you today. How are you?
Absolutely. Thanks, Carson. Yeah, we did sort of hit it off very quickly a while back, and this is great. I'm glad we're finally getting together to do this. So, doing wonderful. We've shared this passion for sales and growth and continuing like our education and sort of how we go about sales and selling ourselves and just continuing to grow. So, I'm excited to have the conversation.
No doubt about it, man. I love it. So, one of the things too that I think, you struck a chord with me when we first started talking, it's that really sales is intrinsic in everything that we do. We're always either selling ourselves or we're, positioning our brand or I mean, half the time I'm convincing my kid to eat her vegetables, right? So, I mean, there's always sales elements in everything that we're doing, right? So, talk to me more about that. How can somebody, even who has a non-sales role,
Right.
improve their brand and the way that they persuade and influence?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, it takes a while, and I think perspective and time and years in a role, working for a company, trying to do X. And what's really given me the perspective is over the years of working in IT delivery, finally going through years of experiences, realizing the social interactions with the customers and like, hey, you're performing a certain way, you're interacting with humans and in just a normal connected way, that leads to sales and growth because it's built on common human to human relationships. And I think it's a very common thing that's overlooked. And we try to follow some script where we're told to do X or follow this formula. And that's not always the case. You're just trying to do the right thing for the right reasons. And when everyone has a mutual outcome, the sales and things happen. And it's because of that reason. And so relationships.
Couldn't agree more. You said something there that resonated with me, and that, look, during the course of our career, God willing, we're going to do a lot of different roles, and sometimes we're going to
Yep.
leave roles before we're ready to leave them. But no matter what, you're always going to be parlaying skills and experiences that you accumulate along the way into the next thing that you do. I'm interested because I know you were in IT delivery before being in formal sales. How would you say your perspective changed, or maybe was augmented by your prior experience when you came into sales? How did that impact your day to day?
Yeah, well, it's a good question because I didn't realize how much impact I had when I was doing my normal job. Like I didn't realize, hey, by fixing this problem, creating this SOP, running, doing these tickets, I mean, I'll just go all the way back to 20 years ago doing help desk tickets, like
Yeah.
going above and beyond, like creating a simple help desk ticket, following up with the customer after closure. Are you okay? Like creating those experiences is what grows, but I never knew the impact until I really, got into these other delivery roles where I was interfacing with other senior people and senior leaders on the customer side and realized, hey, you're building a brand and an experience. And it just, when you do that, you make everyone feel good, but you're going above and beyond, you're doing your job. And then that translates into sales. And then that transition to real sales, like full time, like, oh, you have a sales title, you have a quota, you're carrying a bag, quote unquote. It just makes it you have the responsibility and accountability, but you still have to do all those other things. They still have to be done correctly. And so if you have poor delivery and poor experiences, that's why in my sales role when I transitioned, I always maintained a connectedness to the delivery, what's going on the ground, following up with all the things. That way you're educated on the full spectrum of what's going on in your client base. And that's been a huge, huge help for me because I've never let go of the delivery and I've kept that sort of breath of awareness and engagement. Now, not too engaged. I'm not doing the delivery job, but I'm aware, educated, and can speak to it should I need to. And then that makes that customer experience to that next level to where you're not just a salesperson. You know the customer's mission, you know what's going on, you know their delivery challenges, you know their enterprise architecture. And it's like, wow, I really like talking to you because you know my business. So that's what's really helped when I transitioned to sales.
for me, and as you're talking, Chris, I'm like in my mind, I'm going back to, I think it all goes back to How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Oh yeah, it's a great
No matter
book.
what role you're in, right? I mean, you've got to understand where other people are coming from. You got to meet them where they are. You've got to ultimately
Yep.
influence them in a positive way and persuade them in a positive way. I was actually mentoring someone this week on a role that they're interested in, and they
Mhm.
were looking at some different elements of that role, and they were asking me like, hey, I'm looking at these things, and I think they've done a good job of talking to some different stakeholders that would be positively
Right.
influenced by the role. They've gotten some perspective. And then honestly, there were some things that I think they viewed differently than some of these stakeholders. And it's like, hey, I don't like what this, process looks like. This is what I would recommend. And it's like, hey, look, it's all in how you make people feel. And it is
Right.
all about how you ultimately you're not gonna win these folks over or earn the right to influence them if you poke holes in what they're doing. But if you offer to build on it and you acknowledge the merit of what that project is, and you
Right.
offer to build on that, that can be your bridge to earning the right to influence. And so,
Right.
a lot of our conversation was, hey, really, knowing how to play the game is so valuable. I didn't realize that when I was a much younger person. And honestly, like this week, I was in some very challenging
Right.
scenarios where I was working through some murky deals
Yeah.
where customer executives were upset by
Yep.
something that I inherited, came in, understood the parameters, was very transparent in process and what I was going to try to do,
Right.
earned their buy-in,
Right.
very respectful, sat in the pain with them, sat in the anguish,
Yeah.
and ultimately came back with something where everybody got something. Our
Right.
team ended up getting a strategic lever. They got closer to where they needed to be from a budgetary perspective. And these are
Yep.
skills that, I always like to say, I'm not a prototypical technology salesperson. I came from
Right.
advertising and
Right.
telecommunications, and
Right.
so that's actually helped me in coming into this role.
Right.
One of the things, Chris, that I want to hear from you about is, obviously, and I don't think this is talked about enough, is when you transition into a role that maybe somebody else had previously, they
Big
they're going to
time.
probably do it very differently than you. And I
Yep.
have a perspective on this too because I came into a sales role in my current company
Yeah.
years ago, and I actually originally was hurt by, but then ultimately was benefited by the fact that I
Right.
look completely different style wise than the person
Yeah.
prior. How do
Yes.
you recommend people step in and really establish their unique brand?
Yes. No, that's a phenomenal question. I'm glad you asked that because you said that when you came in and transitioned. So it's I see this all the time. And unfortunately, no matter where we're at in our careers, it's perspective and we're going to change roles inevitably. Or like you said, history. You by default doing a role or job, someone was doing that most likely before you. Probably, obviously, some type of fashion. Anyway, so you're going to inherit the customer perception of that role by default. You can't change that. But what you can change is saying, hey, I'm not the new, say, Carson, you were doing the job. And like, I see so many people do this, and I'm like, I cringe
Uh,
when it happens. It's like, I'm the new Carson. No, no,
no,
no.
no, no, no.
No, you're not the new Carson. You're not the new Chris. Or they're like, hey, I'm the new John. No, I'm like, stop. Don't do that.
Yeah.
You're Chris. Like you are Carson. I'm Chris. You bring your own unique skills and traits to it. And there may be good experiences, there may be bad.
Mhm.
Oftentimes you're inheriting things that were bad experiences, bad behavior, bad follow-up, bad engagement, just something that's negative. And you'll never know the full story, positive or negative, what you're inheriting. So I always like, I'm Chris. This is my experience. This is my background. Here's how here's me. And I'm not sure what happened before, but I will do these three things. I will be transparent. I will tell you my role. I will tell you how I'm comped even. I will tell you,
Yes.
everything that's going on. I will tell you how the business is going. I will tell you what's going on in other businesses that may impact you, and I will follow up and I'll be consistent with you. And just lay out some foundational things, and it's always set the stage differently. And I would
Yeah.
encourage anyone moving into sales or changing roles for that matter, establish your own self and brand.
Amazing, Chris. I mean, look, I'm thinking about it, even how it benefited me today in this challenging situation that I was in. It's
Yeah.
like
How was
I was
that?
able to speak from experience to say to this customer executive who a couple of months ago wouldn't even speak to us, and rightfully
Wow.
so.
Right.
We had inherited some things that had been done procedurally that had really challenged these folks, and they were not in a mindset to work directly with us. And
Mm.
the comment that
And
I
you
made is
inherited that. That's not your fault.
exactly. And I said, like, hey, look, first off, I want to acknowledge the anguish and the pain. I find as a salesperson, if you sit in the pain and the anguish with customers, whether it's
Yeah.
there's a service outage or
Right.
there's some catastrophe, a billing issue, to not look the other way, to not run from it, like sit in the pain, even if it's to say, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to
Right.
figure it out. I'm going to reach out, copy them on the paper trail so that they see that you're working on it. Those things build and earn trust. And I was able to say, hey, we don't ever make deals like this. 3 years ago, I was able to get an exception because of a very
Right.
serious competitive threat. I was able to get that exception for you today. And that's going to
Right.
save you X amount of money this next year.
Perfect.
Furthermore, I was able to build in because I know where my company, where my team is willing to invest. We invest in
Right.
innovation, we invest
Yeah.
in growth because
Yep.
of some strategic levers that we were able to pull. I know you weren't able to commit at this level. I got you in at this level,
Right.
and I managed to keep the exact same discount flat. So we're going to save you
Yep.
X amount of money over the next year. They were happy. We were happy because we got some net
Yep.
new growth, and you can turn the tide. When I started as an account executive, Chris, what you said resonated so much with me because when I came in, I had so many customers tell me, like, your predecessor, like, came in, audited
Yep.
us, and ran away and made a
Yeah.
lot of money off of us.
Yep.
You guys only show up when it's time to get paid, when it's
It's time
renewal
for
time.
renewal.
And I said, look, I can't speak to what happened to BC before Carson. And you get a
Right.
little chuckle. What I can
Yep.
tell you is this is what I'm good at. This is my background, just like you said.
Yep.
I get paid to safeguard your relationship. It's not lost on me that sometimes the investment that you make is with
Yep.
us is bigger than anything else. And I also know for a fact that a lot of times you don't even know what you own. The biggest value I'm going to be able to bring is demystifying some of the resources that are available to you that you are entitled to because of your investment. That's what I stand to do. But don't
Yep.
just take my word for it. I'm going to earn your trust. Like, give me some
Yep.
things. And you know what else? I've even asked executives, describe to me your ideal relationship with me or with my company.
Yep.
Get that, and I had one that told me, like, hey, I had this great relationship with my rep from your
Right.
vendor
Yeah.
5 years ago. This is what I got out of him. I said,
Yep.
that's what I'm going to give him. And guess what? 6 months later, we did a massive deal together. Those are the types of things that can make all the difference
Absolutely.
in the world.
Yep, it absolutely can. And I had sat down with some leadership at a customer this week and had a nice enlightening experience. They've had a lot of leadership turnover, so we finally got everyone in the room. And one of the things I told him, I said, "Hey, one of the guys that was on your side last year asked me." I said we were having coffee, and he just said, "Hey, Chris, how are you guys comped?" He said, "I don't know." And I said, "Oh, I made the assumption." And that's on me. I made the assumption because this is a customer we've been doing business with for 5 years. And I'm like, oh, I would have thought by now he knew and understood because again, there was someone else doing sales before. There's multiple other touch points with this customer. I made an assumption, but he asked and I was like, oh gosh, that sort of gave me like this epiphany. And I was like, oh, we're comp this, and this. Spent 3 to 5 minutes. And what he said afterwards was the most enlightening, empowering thing because he was like, Chris, no one's ever told me that. And I said, it's not a secret. I said, there's
Yeah.
no secret here. They thought if there's one transaction, like you get paid X commission on that. And I said, no, no, no. I said, no, it's not like that at all. And it was just, it gave me a new perspective to make sure that I weave that into new customers or just old customers that may have forgotten, may have had turnover, and just because it builds transparency and trust. And like we're not hiding anything. This is what we're how we're paid. This is how the company is paid. There's products, there's services, there's consumption. Like it's no secret, but they should understand that. So
Yeah.
anyways, we said that in a boardroom today. I said that in the leadership, and they're like,
Love it.
okay. None of them knew it, and they're like, well, I appreciate that. They're like, thank you. You know,
It's unreal, man. It's funny to me because, like, again, on paper, there is literally no reason why I should have ever been successful in technology and cloud. But the
yeah,
reason
right,
that I have been is because I'm very persistent when it comes to go out and creating relationships with the right people,
right, people,
being very transparent with process. And I
Yep.
even do the same thing internally. Sometimes the most important selling is the selling that we do internally. I need
Hmm.
to know my customer well enough to bring it back to my business and sell like,
Yep.
hey, this is where we're going for the next 3, 5, 10 years, potentially with this organization. I need
Yep.
to unlock the coffers of resources and,
Yep.
maybe it's discounting, maybe it's funding, whatever it is.
Yep.
But those are the types of things that I think are so critical. And that's really been my basis, but I'll do that a lot of times too, even with my extended team. That's
Right.
the nice thing about working for a big company is that you're surrounded by a lot of bright minds. One thing that I will say is you can't ever presume that your predecessor was a great seller or
Right.
leader. You've got to make sure you uncover like what was the state of affairs, what
Right.
are the opportunities, what are the
Yep.
challenges, how can I bring my unique flair. But I've often found too, like a lot of times, we'll struggle to get the attention of like our extended team because they get pulled in a lot of different directions too. We got to sell them on getting in the
Right.
boat and staying in the boat with us a lot of times. And it's all about what's in it for them. I mean, just like I'm
Right.
selling to a client, I've got to
Yes.
sell to my extended team. Hey, this is why you
Yep.
should pay attention to my big opportunity because it's going to
Yes.
get you paid. I created a program 3 years ago called Plays That Get You Paid. And I went around and I understood everybody that touched my market, their
Yep.
comp structure, how they got
Yep.
paid. And I said, look, if I'm going to go out and master getting conversations that get you
Yep.
paid, what would that look like?
Yeah.
What's your ideal client? And I went out and
Yeah.
found them, whether it was like chief security officers, chief
Oh, that's
data,
awesome.
chief financial. I go out and get the relationship, pass
Yep.
the baton, keep it moving. They loved
Yep.
me.
Yeah. What you said there was key, and it honed in on something, is the relationships with the right people. Because you said that the C is the financial people, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen they're like, oh, I'm running into this challenge. I'm running this problem. Like, I can't sell this, or I have this problem and it's big. And I'm like, how long has this been going on? And I'm like, who are you talking to? And oftentimes we're talking to the same people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, did you reach out and actually talk to the person that has the money in their budget office, in their finance office? Who's the CEO's boss? Because there's tons of contracts officers. There's tons of people here that are assigned specific budgets, specific accounts, specific customers, etc. Right? Well, there's someone above them, and there's usually a chief procurement officer or a CFO above them.
Yeah,
Do we have the relationship with them? Oftentimes, it's either a no or it's
correct.
a I don't know. Someone's talked to them. It was 6 months ago. It was a year. I'm like, if to me a relationship is, can I text them? Can I text the CIO and will they text me back?
Yes.
That's a relationship, and that's now we know we're connected because we can have a dialogue, and that's it's just it matters. You have to know the funding and all the people. It's not just that business or IT segment. You've got to know the right players, and I can't tell you how many. I don't have enough fingers and toes to count when we run into any problems or I inherited account, and it's like we're missing critical relationships to be successful.
I love that as kind of a dream pursuit, to have the texting relationship. I think back,
Yeah.
there was a client years ago that I had, actually it was the one that I asked point blank, like,
Okay.
describe the perfect relationship with me. And
Yep.
even after I managed the account, I no longer even managed the account, and the new account team could not get this deal done. And they actually called me and said, look, we'll give
Yep.
you carte blanche to go in and get this
Right.
deal closed. They had tried for 6 months and couldn't get it done. I sat down with them 45 minutes, walked out with the PO. It's like
Yep.
it's all about relationships. And when I think about that too, like how many times like even my CVP would reach out
Right.
to me because I had the texting relationship with the
Yep.
CIO. They wanted the deal done. They're like, Carson, go do your thing.
Go do it.
It's like
Yeah.
that's super fortunate, and it's the power of relationships. Something else that I'd love to get your perspective on, Chris, is sometimes when we go out and we try to seek out these relationships, we've got people within the organization that tries to keep us in a box. It might be like
Yes.
IT, might be procurement, might be middle management. And don't get me wrong, like these are people like we want and need those relationships too. But a lot of times, well, these people say like, hey, you need to work through just me. And let's be
Right.
real, man. I'm not going to do that. And my philosophy is, first off, I get paid to go out and create and nurture a relationship with the all up organization. So I'm
Yep.
absolutely not going to just work in silos with one person.
Yep.
Second, if I am not making magical, sweet music and deals with this organization, I'm not really
Right.
risking anything by ignoring that request or polite politely, respectfully declining that request and then going back and doing my thing. So, that's my mentality. But a lot of people allow themselves to get stuck in
Yep,
a box, and that is
I
their
do.
barrier to success. What say you?
Oh, that is like the $1 million escalation slash sales slash because you're selling yourself internally. You have to be mindful, respectful of the politics inside your organization as well as external and that organization. But if that account is at zero or if that account is plateaued in there, why are we repeating the same people, the same processes, and the same thing? There's just no reason for it. Let someone else step up to the plate. The how. Now, I've struggled with the how. Sometimes I'll admit, I've gone off and like went to the top. Sometimes it's worth a known hand slap.
Hmm.
I don't like that answer, but the how can be done in a finesse or a methodical manner. As long as you've asked, as long as there's awareness, like say it's a new account, you're trying to get the CIO or CFO, whatever, C-level meeting, other people say, I have it, I have it. Well, how can I get integrated? How can I do that? Try. Time will tell, and time has always proven valuable to me because I you have to know when there's a right opportunity because there will be. As long as you keep a close pulse with it to know when to go and join with the person who does quote unquote have the relationship, probably not a texting relationship, right? But has the relationship, there will be something come up that it makes sense. And then, you got to pivot and either make the decision on that interaction, whether you need to do this as a team or with that person to have a co-relationship or go off on your own and try. You can't lose if you're already at zero. I mean,
Exactly. Or if you think things are saturated. I mean, I remember a few
yeah,
years back, I had a person that worked for me. I came to a new team, got this person on my team,
yep,
large customer, and they're like, I already know everybody. I've managed
yeah,
the
I
account
got it. I
for
got
10
everything.
years.
I'm
I
good.
got
Yeah,
it. I said, I challenged it and I said, look, if I'm able to go out and create some new conversations, will that bother you? No, you knock yourself out, man, was the response I basically got. And they doubted it and they thought I wouldn't be able to do anything. Within
right.
like 2 weeks, I
Like,
mean, I set up maybe 20 meetings, 5 net new opportunities and went directly into the pipeline,
awesome.
and turned some heads. But what I've developed over the years, Chris, is like I've always tried to be a problem solver. I hear our leaders saying, "Hey, we got to get into these other lines of business. We've got to, land these different solution play conversations." And it's like a Moneyball game to me. It's like I need these relationships. I need to say this to get the meeting done. I can go out and do that, and I can do that at scale, and I can do that rapidly. I mean, I've developed a system by which I can get into I can break into 50% of any conversations that I try with the C-suite now,
Awesome.
based on using Sales Navigator and Copilot
Yep.
or ChatGPT, using
So many
AI to
tools.
perfect the
Yep.
message and then putting the personal touch. It's all about how you engage. And one of the things, look, you told me one of your focus areas for this year is tonality. Tell me more about that.
Absolutely. It was actually, I was one of my mentees was talking to a week or two ago, and they were like, "How do I grow?" And I want to try to, looking at sales roles, and I like, look, well, you can't be talking down here, and when you're talking about technology, you can't have it, your tone really matters. I also invested in myself and took a little bit of training over the summer, and just talked about your tone fluctuations, your volume, your energy, what you're projecting, like all of this, we're sort of what we're doing right now. Like
Yeah,
it matters. If you come in here, your customer is going to feel here, and they're going to be like, if Chris is talking right here, they might even feel lower in their emotional state. If you can't connect with them, be excited about what you're talking about. I'm not saying be over exuberant and fake, but you have to have the tonality to be positive, be confident, project yourself so that they can trust you and know. Because if you're below a bar, your volume's low, or you're monotone, or you're not excited about Azure or this, or that, they will not be either. They won't be.
exactly.
So yeah, I mean, tonality is key, and it's honestly something I didn't really focus on or think about more until this last year when folks started asking me, and I've been mentoring, and like I said, that training really highlighted some of that for me.
I think
How about
sometimes
you?
people,
What's your experience with it?
I mean, look, people overthink these types of situations so often. I think you go in and because you don't necessarily feel 100% confident in the outcome,
Right.
you come across that way and your tonality is off. I mean, look,
Yep.
I went into an executive briefing a couple weeks ago and I was nervous going into it. And I've been doing
Yeah.
this forever. It's nervous because I
Right.
care. I think nerves mean that you actually care about the outcome. And
Right.
that doesn't mean that I'm going to fall flat on my face. You've got to take a step back sometimes and realize, look, I'm talking to people and they all get paid to do a job. They all get paid to
Right.
hit a budgetary number. They all get paid to, maybe oversee successful projects or whatever it
Right.
is. And at the end of the day, like if I'm ever in doubt of what to say, I just kind of take a step back and realize I read the room. And then when it comes to the confidence element, it's like there are things that I am confident about, and there are things that I'm absolutely not
Right.
confident about. Over time, I've had a lot of deals that I've lost, but I've also
Hmm.
had a lot of deals that I've won because I lost those deals and I knew how to see around corners better in the situation that came. And
Right.
over time, you start to realize, like, I've got to understand and read my audience. What is going to
Right.
resonate with this crop of people? If
Yes.
I tell them, hey, like, look, this is where I've seen success with other clients that have had similar situations, or,
Yep.
you know, um, in my experience, I've been able to do this a couple of times, or, hey,
Yep.
if I'm able to secure this or do this or, get
Yep.
this resource for you, would that be of value? Can't make any promises, but I'm going to go after that. And then
Right.
just keeping them read in. I think the confidence piece is really sometimes it's just confidence in the very next step. People go
Right.
after deals. You're not going after a deal. You're going after a
Yeah.
relationship. You're looking to earn the
Yes.
the right to continue, and that it just goes back to what you said earlier about relationships.
100%. I mean, we go into these executive meetings, and a lot of times I've got people that say, "What's your ask? What's your ask?" Now, should you have an ask? Yes. Yes, you should. But do you have to ask for everything? Like some people, they overthink the ask.
Hmm.
And I have my notes written down. When we started this new meeting with the leadership chain this week with the customer, we did our soft intros. And I just said, look, guys, I really appreciate your time. I know it's been months getting us. I said, here's my three asks. I had them written down in my notebook. I was like, I didn't want to be distracted. I said, boom, 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 boom. And I said, I know this introduction part seems trivial. I said, but it's very key. I said, because we've had this contract for years and I want to have it for years with you. I said, so it's very vital that all of us in here know each other because and connect. And I think I was trying to tell you that earlier is they learned something about themselves. I learned something about each of them. They learned us. We walked away knowing each other as humans. And that was one of my three asks. So it doesn't have to be crazy big asks, but be clear and intentional about it. And it can be as simple as, Carson, I want to know what was the last 20 years of your career? What was the hardest thing? Or what is your biggest challenge and how do you looking to solve it? Like simple asks. I think we overthink it as humans that we need this person and I want this big thing from them.
No, you got to go
Yeah.
into every meeting with a clear desired outcome. And
Yep.
often I find a lot of value in stating it right out of the gate. Like, hey,
Yep.
this is how I see the meeting today. This is what I'd like to walk away with.
Yep.
This is what I think based on our conversations up to this point. You want to walk away with. Keep me honest here. Let me know. And let's work toward that. And then obviously you can kind of hash out like these are the things that are that matter to them. Here's a desired next step. Here's where I'd like to go from here. Here's where I recommend we go from here.
Absolutely.
Um, how does that sound? Doing those trust checkers and that's ultimately how great deals happen is you earn the right to
Absolutely.
influence and they make a decision
Right.
because they see less risk in going with you and what you're proposing
Yep.
than going in another route or staying status quo.
You said it correctly there was the risk. They don't want
That's
to have the problem of dealing with these unknowns. And if they haven't done business with you, they're like, oh, I'm not sure. Contracts, technology, human issues, right? Human issues are issues when they have delivery or sales or enablement. Those are issues. They don't want the risk. All they want is to, how do they make this problem easier? And can you work, will you work through it with me? That's it.
it,
Simple.
man. Chris, this has
Yeah.
been amazing.
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to hit on before we sign off here in these last couple minutes?
No, this was a great session. I really appreciate it. I mean, it's allowed to touch on the relationships and some of the key things. There's a lot of things we could probably dive deep in and just have a segment on just individual things, but this was a great overview of just a
Yeah,
lot.
I mean, look, I think the stuff that we talked about today it's while it is game changing, it isn't something that any seller can't assimilate into their arsenal. And I think that's what I want to get across. It's
Yep.
being human, being your authentic self, knowing your resources and the value, the unique value that you bring
Yes.
as a human, but also the value you
And
bring as an organization,
yep.
how you serve, those types
Yep.
of things matter.
And just showing empathy for the customer. If you show
Yes.
empathy for them, they'll reciprocate that. Because I like to always remind myself, no matter who you're talking to, they probably put their pants on the same way this morning. So connect as humans, be real, and don't try to create this facade of someone you're not. And the more real you are, they see that. Because what do we both have, Carson? We both have, through our experiences, we have very good meters that detect risk and uncertainty, and if there's a problem. We have very good what's BS meters. And when we're not our genuine self, that comes across. People hear it and they feel it. And if we can bring just our normal selves, it's just amazing when we have authentic connections.
I love it. And I think about great wins and I think about great relationships. And practically every great win I've ever had, I had to sit in a tremendous amount of angst and pain with that same customer because of
Yep.
a challenge, a billing issue, a service outage,
Something.
something along those lines.
Yep.
You can earn a lot of credibility and
In the pain.
respect if you sit in the trenches and in the pain with them in those key moments. You're looking to earn a relationship. They're going to do business with you because they see less risk in going through you than status quo
Got
or
it.
doing something else. That's it.
Yep.
Chris, this was awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
This is great.
And I'm already looking forward to next time. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I'm definitely looking forward to next time because this is exciting. We got a lot to uncover and unpack here.
Good stuff, man. We'll see you then.
All right, Carson. Take care. All right.